Teachers of Reddit, what is the scariest thing you have ever seen a student?
After 15 years in preschools, this last year was the most difficult. I often felt more like a bouncer than a teacher. My group of 16 students would normally be a breeze. You get a range of characters and maybe 1 or 2 high-needs students. But this year, by the end I realized we had about 6 to 7 high-needs students, almost half the class. 4 of them prone to violence. If I could get one to stop, I could get the next to stop fighting, but by the time I got to the 3rd or 4th student, the first would run up and hit someone else. Blocks would go flying and several times I had to dodge Cuisinart rods, 1M sticks. My glasses had been broken once and spit on multiple times, and my shirts ripped all in attempts to stop them from hitting each other. Though the one act that disturbed me the most was around the time we had an outbreak of the rotavirus, hot projectile vomiting. We give the students the benefit of the doubt and privacy in the bathroom, as you do, but one particularly screechy student had started going and pouring the other kids' toothpastes in the bathtub. But every day or so we wanted to show him that we believed in him, that we could trust him. As we were getting ready to go outside one day, 3 students started fighting over where to put some shoes. But I didn't see Jay, or hear his usually yelling. I asked my co-taker and she told me he asked to go get his water bottle from the class about 10 minutes prior. She chose to handle the battling students and I went to the class bathroom. There was Jay grinning his demented grin and laugh next to the toilet, toothbrushes all on the floor, and on in his hand as he brought it into the toilet. I shouldn't have taken it from his hand, but I did and the screeching started. We had to store the toothbrushes and toothpastes away from the students until Jay left.
For me, it's not what I see. I have seen your typical high school garbage happen. Fights to the point of unconsciousness, students stating they're going to kill XYZ student, lots of knives, no guns though, etc. It's what you hear from kids. So far I have known 5 sexual assault issues, 2 rapes from a family member, 5 or 6 pregnancy scares, and they can't tell mom, 2 or 3 serious suicidal ideation, no food in the house from more than I can remember. These are the things that mess with my mind at night. My classroom is under my control, what happens later is not. To play along though when a kid overdosed in class was a little alarming. Trying to wake up a teenager while also not trying to curse or hurt him, sternum rub, which could lead to a lawsuit, was not fun. I didn't actually sternum rub him, but I was close to doing it. I had called for the nurse but they were already gone. The admin was taking their time getting there. The other kids were cool about it though. For anyone wondering, he made it out just fine and from what I know at least attempted college.
On my last day of junior year, the girl who sat next to me in class overdosed. She survived, but I've never really gotten over how terrifying it was to see her suddenly go limp and fall out of her seat. I am so sorry you went through that.
I have had several dangerously violent children over the course of my career, but it's been really bad the past 3 years. Kids trying to steal my teacher's scissors so they could stab someone, flying desks and chairs, kicking and punching adults, self-harm, physically attacking younger students, vandalism, screaming and crying so loud no teaching can happen, growling when angry, running away. I had a student last year who would get upset and stand against a wall banging his head until blood started to smear the wall. Yes, we tried to stop him, but it usually involved 3 to 4 adults restraining him. Kids can be really hard to restrain when they're thrashing around. It never surprises me to hear of kids my students' ages being put in handcuffs. His mom said the wallbanger was fine and didn't need any counseling. My principal encouraged me to work harder at building a relationship with him. The kid would usually be returned to class within 30 minutes of being dragged out with a bandage on his head and a bag of hot Cheetos. I teach kinder and first grade.
My principal encouraged me to work harder at building a relationship with him. That's admin's solution to all student problems. Build a relationship with them. Building a relationship isn't going to solve a serious mental health issue or stop the abuse the child is suffering at home.
I was teaching grade 4 and had announced my pregnancy to the class when I was about 4 months. Everyone was so excited. One little guy, however, made it his mission to try and hurt my baby. On several occasions he kicked a soccer ball at my bump, would try and trip me, and one time even said, "Let's meet this baby," while opening and closing scissors. There was some other contributing factors, but I ended up taking leave early due to anxiety over this. So weird. When I returned the next year, he had moved to a different school.
Let's meet this baby while opening and closing scissors. My clinical diagnosis at this part is This was a boy who was 4 to 5. I would help my mom, who was the actual teacher. This kid would constantly cry. All the time, no matter what we did. I would always sit with him and color, talk, just anything to try to help him feel better. He would always make sad pictures of himself crying in a monster. He said no one believed the monster was bad. I told him we all have monsters sometimes, but we have to be brave because once we face the monster, sometimes they go away. I ended up telling his mom about this monster and she wasn't sure what it could be. Long story short, the monster ended up being his dad. He cried all the time because the dad was inappropriately abusing him. I hate saying it any other way. Every day he was home. But the mom actually walked in on it when she got off early from work one day. She tried to shoot the dad. He ended up in jail. She told me she put the kid in therapy. I've not seen him since, but that has stuck with me. I thought it was just a creepy thing he thought about. The monster. Make-believe or something. But no, his monster was real. Very similar with my cousin and her daughter. She and the father were divorced, and as far as anyone can tell, the sexual abuse started after, when he would have his visitation with no one else around, except the other 2 kids, who wouldn't be in the room, and as far as the therapists can tell, were thankfully not also abused and unaware it was happening. My cousin suspected her daughter had autism due to her behavior and was in the process of trying to get a diagnosis, not specifically of autism. She didn't think she'd know better than doctors, but obviously something was wrong and she was doing her best to get it figured out. She found out the truth when the cops knocked on her door. They showed her censored pictures of the abuse and asked her to confirm if it was her 3-year-old daughter. Then informed her that if he came to the house, it was a day he was supposed to pick them up, not to give the children to him. She looked the cop in the eyes and said, "You better not let him get to my door. If he comes here, I'll kill him." They assured her that wouldn't happen. They were just telling her as a precaution, just in case. It's a sad case. The oldest knows. It made the news and her mom had to explain everything to her before she found out that way. She blames herself for not protecting her little sister. She's obviously been told it's not her fault. The middle child is 5. He just knows that Daddy did something really bad to your sister and that's why you can't see him anymore. He doesn't really understand and misses his dad. The youngest, the one who was being abused, is actually doing the best in a way. She's smiling more, not crying all the time. She talks up a storm now. She was nearly mute previously, hence why autism was suspected. They're all in therapy, but it's not an easy road.
He didn't really do anything that scary while he was with me, but he did bloody scare me after he was gone. I had just become the class teacher of 39th graders in the middle of the school year and had to tell a student that he was expelled because he had only shown up to class 3 times in 6 months. We had a nice chat before that. I had told him I felt I was missing the bigger picture here as I was new to that class, but that I still felt bad because he didn't seem to be the kind of guy who just skipped classes because he didn't feel like leaving his bed. He was very polite, thanked me for being gentle, shook my hand, turned around and clocked another student, breaking his nose, ran out of the room and pepper sprayed the door area to cover his retreat. So that was awkward. Days later I finally had time to go through the administrative files of my new students. His file was full of drawings. He liked to draw in class when he still came. He drew mainly AK-47s. He was born in Russia, we were in Western Europe. Around the AK-47s, love poems to the AK-47 in Russian, scenes of, well, AK-47s in action, and lists of fellow students. My predecessors had confiscated these drawings and his hit lists and put them away in a file that most people wouldn't even touch because it's mainly for documentation of things you already know when you are their teacher. Nobody had told me that there might be a fucking problem waiting for me. Nobody had told the social worker of the school, probably because he didn't disrupt classes. Also, nobody had told me that the other student and his pals had bullied him relentlessly for a year before he decided to stay away from school. I guess I wasn't told that because no teacher knew, as they hadn't cared to find out why he was spending recess alone, sitting for himself with a 1,000-yard stare. I learned that when the other students had warmed up to me and started telling me things like this. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.